Well, morning. Here we are, we're down at Sandhurst Lake. A bit sleepy this morning. Cold old night, we got here yesterday, and I was lucky enough to catch a nice common 32 pounder. So I'm going to show you the sort of just the rig and the basic setup I'm using, like, you know. Well, anyway, we turned up yesterday. I'm not really a Sandhurst regular or nothing, do you know what I mean? But I've got a lot of friends who are bailiffs and what have you, who are. So we got here yesterday and I spoke to a couple of the lads and they said, you know, in the last week there've been lots of anglers down, not a lot being caught, or, you know, for Sandhurst, by Sandhurst standards. Everyone putting lots of bait in, you know, it is that time of year after all. But everyone putting lots of bait in and not an awful lot coming of it. Fish not really showing, do you know what I mean? So basically you know what's happening out there. For those of you who've never been here before, you know, it's quite a bland lake from my perspective. There's no weed as such, very little variation in depth. To me, it's, you know, I'd call it as flat as a pancake, for want of a better word. There's no weed out there, very little in the way of snags, so you can imagine the lake bed is really polished. I mean, really clean over most of the lake. Little silty depressions, but for the most part, wherever you cast in this lake, with your eyes shut, over your shoulder, whatever, you'll get a real smack as the lead hits the bottom. So, you know, you come here, you approach it like you would any other lake of this type. You come here, you know, you spoke to the bailiffs, you've had a little bit of gen about what's happened the week before, lots of bait gone in, not a lot being caught, and all the lads, you know, they're all of the same opinion, and, you know, well, we'll fish singles or very small bags and just try and nick a bite. You know, with lots of residual food in the lake anyway, do you know what I mean? From an angler's perspective, it's the easiest and the best way to approach it. So, as usual, it's this time of year, you know, it's autumn time, we're starting to get the cold nights, 4 degrees this morning, coldest night of the year so far. The coldest night of the, you know, the approaching autumn, winter, whatever. So I like to feed them something, they want food, you know. I ain't going to use lots of food, but I want to use food. And one of the best bits of food for getting a quick bite is a bit of pepperami. Buy in any supermarket, everybody knows what I'm talking about anyway, but it's changed in recent years. You know, the proper pepperami is full fat, it's full of big white pieces of pork fat. It's really effective bait, very oily, kicks up a good signal for ages. And when it's on the bottom and it starts to wash out a bit, it's very visual as well, do you know what I mean? A bit too visual sometimes, but you can see how I'm fishing it. I've got it fished very basically, with a curved shanked hook, with a little bit of a shrink tube, silicone, just to bring it down level with the eye. You know, it hooks them very well. Because it's only a small shanked hook, with a little, you know, I don't like to add the addition of a bit of a shrink tube on the eye end. That just decreases the gape, you know, massively, and they're only a little hook anyway. And as you can see, what's the gape there? Probably only 10 mil or so, or 15 mil, and I don't want to close that down at all. And I find that you don't need the addition of the shrink, you know, the shrink tube on the hook. I think, you know, once they pick this up, it's a very effective rig. It gets old more often than not. Obviously, I'm using my favourite sticks. Something I went off a lot in recent years, you know, I'd used it a lot, wrote about it to death, and like most things in life, you get very sick of it, you know, and I'd gone as far as I could with it and sort of put it to one side. But in the last couple of winters, I started using them again because people weren't. And I know how devastating an approach it is, like, if it's done correctly. So I started using them again, you know, like my old style, really heavily oiled, lots and lots of smell in there, natural smell. You know, no artificial liquids and that, just basically cramming as much into a very tiny parcel as I can, because I mean this is only the size really of a 20mm boilie, just a bit bigger. But on the lake bed, once this fluffs out and all the liquids start to get released and it breaks down, you know, it's actually a very visual object on the bottom, which isn't a bad thing here. You know, there's lots of carp out there, and the water isn't clear, it's quite coloured. But even so, you know, I still go small with the sticks because, you know, even in the sort of size sticks I see most people casting out are far too big, do you know what I mean? And when they've broken down, they're massive on the bottom, and they really are too blatant in my opinion. But a very small one, you know, I'm quite happy to fish the Rami on its own. When I know the fish are out there in front of me, and like they were yesterday, they're out there, I'm quite happy just to fish singles. And my first bite yesterday was on exactly that rig, with no bag at all. And during the days, if I'm honest, I'm probably happier to fish it like that, when I know the fish are out in front of me. At night, always have the addition of the bag, because overnight, you know, I'm just trying to make a bit more of a signal to pull the fish down, because obviously the visual part of it ain't going to be. Just pull that hook in. I'm always careful to pull the hook in, because sometimes I use lots of crushed pellet in my mix, or certainly this mix here. and it's very easy to pull the point into a pellet. And although by the time it's broken down out there, even if you did have a pellet on the point, a lot of times it gets picked up. You know, the point will quit, you know, they've turned to mush anyway. But even so, do you know what I mean? Always be careful when you tease the hook into the end of the stick. And that's it. Real simple, you know. It doesn't get any more simple. I like the addition of that. It's just, again, it's a very small rubber ball, bright one, but I've cut it in half just to give a little fleck of colour. I still like the fleck of colour on here, spring and autumn, you know, especially in the days. Just try it. In slightly clearer water, it'll make a massive difference. But in coloured water, I don't know, they probably don't see it till they get within 12 inches of it, or maybe 18 inches of it, but that's good enough for me. If at the last second they get, ooh, and it brings them to the hook bait, well then, you know, nothing lost.